Welcome back. I'm working on some puzzles. Still happy with the 2100. It was a long time coming. Alright, in this position, I do have a check, but that's not great. It's not great, it's just horrible, because I just lose my queen if I check there. I think that's the only check that I have in this position. I can take this pawn if we're looking at captures. I don't think that's great. I don't know. Wait, is there a way I can get my queen trapped if I just take this pawn? Because the rook can come here guarded by the knight. If I take that pawn. But then, and that pawn will be guarded by the knight as well. The knight will guard both of those squares if my queen is here. But then that pawn would not be guarded. So I could pick up two pawns, but once I got my queen out of the way of the rook, it would be pointed here. No, wait. If I take the pawn, and if the rook comes over, I would just take the knight. And if the knight moves somewhere, then I would just take the rook. I think that's best. I don't see any other good captures. I mean, that's a capture and a check, but again, that just loses the queen. I think I take the pawn, and then whichever piece they don't rescue, I take the other one. That's got to be it. They went to protect the knight with the king. Okay. So now if I take the rook, do I get my queen trapped somehow? No, that would just be a queen trade. I think that would be okay. Is there a check now? A protected check? No. So I think I just take the rook. And then I think I can just get back out this way. Okay. I didn't expect it to keep going. I think I just block that with the pawn. And lose that pawn. I really did not expect this to keep going. Goodness. Can I bring the rook? Because I can't castle queenside now. Can't castle through check. I know that much. There's another move to this puzzle. This pawn is hanging, I've noticed. And I can't threaten the queen with the knight because my two pawns are in the way. I can't move the pawn because then it would be unprotected. That would be really close to checkmate. So I think I bring the rook. Okay. That one went on longer than most of these do. Most of these I overthink, and I try to think 6 moves ahead. What are they going to do here? What are they going to do there? But then I make one move and it's over. This one actually went several moves. The theme is bishop pair. That's not right. Because yes, white has the bishop pair, but that's not the theme of this puzzle. I'm going to thumbs down. What was the theme of this puzzle? It was attack, right? I mean, I just attacked a piece. It was a fork, double attack. When I took that pawn, I was attacking the rook and the knight. I think. Okay. Next puzzle. Okay, they have moved a pawn forward to attack my queen. I can just move my queen out of check. Queen check as we used to call it when we were kids. Sorry, it's not check. I can move my queen out of danger And yeah, some of my friends and I used to call that queen check. I can take the pawn, but then they take back, and my queen is still in danger. Oh wait, if they took back with their pawn, I could also hit it with my knight. But then there's check here. Oh, that would be mate. Would it not? If I took here and they recaptured and I took back with my knight, that would be checkmate. Because my king has nowhere to go and this pawn would not be there and none of the other pieces can block. So that's bad. So if I captured and they captured, I would absolutely have to capture with my queen to guard this spot and this spot from their queen infiltration. However, the black b pawn getting out of the way would open up the rook for some dangerous possibilities here. But before I look at the defense, I should look for checks. That's been my steadfast and nearly unfailing rule in these puzzles, is look for checks first. And I do have checks with my knight, both of which are safe squares. The one on the h6 check would be protected by my queen. The one on e7 is not in danger in any way, but the king would move to... Oh yeah, my knight's in danger too. I just noticed that. But I can get my knight out of danger with check. Oh no, my knight's not in danger. That pawn is pinned. Holy man, there's a lot of stuff going on in this puzzle. That pawn is pinned. Okay, so I don't need to move my knight, but I can move my knight to check. Check. The king then has three options to get out of check. One would be much worse, I think. I think moving to h8 would be very bad because that would be mate. But it does make me wonder, since this pawn is pinned, I don't need to say check immediately if I can threaten checkmate, because this isn't threatening checkmate. The king can just come here, and then my queen's in danger. However, I could get my queen out of danger and go here. I know, as long as this knight's here, though, I'm not threatening mate on that square, because the knight on the h-file knight is the black knight is guarding the checkmate square there. But if I had my queen there, then that would be mate. Correct? I think so. So, my choices, as far as I can see, are get involved in a trading battle here or something that is kind of dangerous, or check one of these two places, although I don't need to move my knight, or put my queen here, threatening checkmate, because my queen cuts off all the other squares from the king, so the knight there would be check. So I'm going to go with that, just because the threat of checkmate is stronger than a mere check that the king can just move out of. However, once I do that, since black I don't think can do much over there, might do something like this, checking me. Wait, but if they do that, my queen's not going to be here anymore, and I can just get out this way. Then they can move this pawn, this pawn forward, and I will be in check from the queen because my king will be sitting here. And then I will have to move somewhere else. At that point, I could block with this pawn, because it would be guarded by this knight. So the other thing that they could do, rather than desperate counterplay down here, is they could move this rook to guard my intended checkmate square. So queen to h6, preparing mate. If they saw it, if they saw my idea was to move the knight to e7, they could guard against that in a couple of ways. They could guard against it by putting the queen here, possibly, or there. They could guard against it by moving the rook over. And then what would I do? So queen, rook over, so I can't put the knight there anymore. I could sacrifice the rook at that point. If it took, my queen would be right there to take back. And that would be check. And then I think I could win the knight too. That's pretty dicey. Oh, this is really complicated, and instead of wasting more of your time, I'm going to pause and think about it. I paused and thought about it. I don't see anything better than moving the queen over there, because it does threaten checkmate. The checks don't threaten anything because it's just too easy for the king to come here. And again, if I checked knight to e7 first and the king moved up, if the king moved over here, I believe this would be mate. But the king doesn't have to go to h8. The king can also go to h7 or g7 when the knight's over here. And then if I tried to come back to check, the king could come out this way. Maybe. I mean, I would still have a follow-up check at that point with the queen. Okay, but then what if the king went here? So if I checked and the king went to h7, I don't have a follow-up check at all. So the knight move is definitely not it first. Taking this pawn, I'm pretty sure, is not it. Because, number one, the recapture by the black b-pawn would open up the rook all the way down. My queen would still be under threat. I would have to take back with the queen, because remember, if I took back with the knight, this would be mate. So I'm going to move the queen over there. Please be right. It was right, and they did one of the things I suggested they would do. In this instance, I think it would be irresponsible of me to capture back the pawn just because that would be checkmate. There's a name for this. Is it the dovetail or swallow's tail mate? Where the queen guarded by this pawn would cut off all the vertical, horizontal, and diagonal, and then I would be stuck because of my own two pieces. So instead of taking back, I have to move here. So I move here. Okay. Instead of doing the other thing, which I thought they might, to discover check here, they moved the rook over to guard against my mate threat. And I still don't have this mate threat because of the knight. Remember, we saw that really early. Now, one thing I did think of was sacrificing the rook to this pawn in order to check, and then the king would only have two legal moves. Well, first, let's make sure they would have to take back with the pawn. Is that forced? Yes. That check, the king cannot go there or there because of my queen. So it would have to capture back with the pawn. Then I could capture back with the queen, and at that point the king would have two legal moves because my queen would be on g6. And then I could, if it went to the corner, I could capture the knight with check. If it went there, I still don't know. So I don't know if the rook sacrifice. This is very forcing because, again, there's only one legal response. But it might not get far enough. I can get the knight for free right now because the pawn is still pinned. The same pawn that can't take my knight also couldn't take my queen. But I don't think that's it. What? I don't think I'm... Because once I just take the knight, then what? Excuse me. Then black would try something over here maybe. Oh, if that queen wasn't there, I was going to say after this pawn recaptured the rook, I would have a check over there. But I can't do that because of the queen. So should I sacrifice here? Is the question. And I think that's it. Because again, only one legal response. I can follow with check. The king will go here or here. If it goes to h8, I will take the knight. If it goes to if it goes to h8, I will take the knight. If it goes to f8, I can bring the other rook at that point. I'm going to take the pawn. It's gone on too long. That was it. Okay. Goodness. Now the question is, do I bring the rook now or take this now? Bringing the rook now is not that forcing. Is my problem with the rook to g1. It does repin the pawn. Rook to g1 repins the pawn so it can't capture the knight and leaves the black knight hanging. And it leaves, but it does leave the king a legal move, however, if I bring the rook now. If I capture first with check, it leaves the king two legal moves. And then I bring the rook. I really don't know. I'm going to take the pawn with the queen. Oh. There was no follow-up. Okay, I thought there was going to be follow-up. I thought I was going to have to figure out what to do once it moved. And I figured it wouldn't move there because I would just take the knight with check. So I was figuring it was going to go to g8, and then I was going to have to guess, do I go back here to check and then bring the rook? But anyway, it's done. And I'm almost at 20 minutes, and I'm going to stop. Thank you for watching.